Hey, Arman here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
Hey, I'm Frank Mills. Good morning, and it is morning for us. And welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. We've got another great show for you today, and I'm excited about today. We talk about a lot of different topics, but today we're going to be talking about why people need to focus on strength training for longevity. And for an older guy like me, I want to know about that good stuff. So we'll be talking about that. Also, we've got NSP fan questions. So that being said, let's get started. Arman, this is a good topic, especially for me. It sounds like a good one for me anyway. Anything specifically that made you want to talk about this particular subject?
Well, it's always on my radar because, I'm going to be 60 next month. And so I'm doing a lot of research on things. But what kind of prompted it, I saw a thing in the media where they're talking about how Peloton is struggling. And I thought, well, okay. And so not really a surprise, but I saw that and I thought, let me kind of address, because there's a lot of people doing this Peloton stuff. And I thought, there's a lot more to it than just riding a bike.
Yeah, yeah. And I kind of have a feeling, but I'm going to ask you, what makes you say that, Arman? Why you're not so surprised?
Well, some of the bigger issues on what people are do not continue to do an exercise program, and because a lot of these bikes and these home equipment things get bought, but they just sit in the bedroom or the garage, and it's mostly because of lack of results. And the reason for lack of results is because people are confused on what they need to do. They'll start out with the right intentions, but then when they get confused, that's when it gets to be a problem. And so even though they do some of these regimens, they still don't lose the body fat. Their muscle tone doesn't jump back like they think it should.
Right,
And
right.
some of the reasons for that is what they're doing, plus nutrition. You can do the Peloton, you're blue in the face, but if you don't eat right, what's the difference? So you need to have a more complete plan. That's just one thing that they're selling that's going to solve everybody's problem,
Mm-hmm.
and not even close. Now, some people, they love it and they're going to feel like they get the best results, and that's fine, But I'm talking, for the bigger population in general, because of what resistance training can do.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of these companies out there. I'm curious, do you think that this business model is sustainable?
So to me, not really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's simply an overpriced bike with some digital screens and some engagement, digitally. So, and that's fine. But, after a while, it gets old like anything else. And then plus, so you ride the bike for 15, 20 minutes or even an hour, you're burning some glucose off. But what are you really doing for longevity? I mean, you'll get a
Right,
little
right.
bit of effect from it. So what they're trying to do, they're adding this interactive training, with having trainers, and I'll just be honest with you. I mean, they're just using baby weights. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
hand weights and this and that. And if you really think you're going to help improve your longevity by doing 10,000 steps or riding a Peloton or doing some hand weights, you need to be honest with yourself.
Right, right.
That's really not going to cut it. And so my point is to get people thinking differently, because that's what needs to happen. And on the Peloton, the way they promote it, act like you're going to tone right up and bring back muscle or even gain muscle. And I mean, they're telling you everything you want to hear. So they're just
Right.
playing to the people's wishes, and this marketing and hyping everything like, oh, this is so great and it's so fantastic. But it's like anything else, you're still riding a bike in a stationary position. So
Hmm.
you can
Right,
hype this
right.
stuff all you want, but after a while, if somebody's not seeing results, it's just going to become another clothes hanger, like a lot of other people have with equipment, because they don't have a complete turnkey system, which is going to need to include nutrition. They
Mm-hmm.
leave you to go figure that out. And, of course, they may have some things they're suggesting for it, but it's based on what everybody else is doing, calories in, calories out. And so people, as they continue to not see results, they get tired of wasting their time. And so that's why, they're struggling. Now they're struggling because they have product issues with the bike itself. I mean, it's a way overpriced bike. So they're struggling because of that. And then also, people will get in on it in the beginning, but then they're realizing, it's an ongoing payment, and it's no different at a gym membership that nobody's using. They're going to be like, I'm gonna get rid of that. So I mean,
Right.
I don't. We'll see what happens. Obviously, they're a big company at this point, but their stock's dropping like a rocket. And this happened to Bally Fitness. Who would have thought Bally Fitness, who was the Mac Daddy for a long period of time, publicly traded, would go out of business? But
Mm-hmm.
that business model was ridiculous, and then it included resistance training and group training and all this other stuff. So to think Peloton's, I see Peloton going down that path. I mean, it's just not going to be that big a company because the
Right.
concept's just it's just not that strong. So, and that's just my opinion. So, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of seems like a fad. Everybody got excited about it. It was something new and different. And then
Well,
after a while, it kind of,
it
right?
also happened during COVID.
Yeah.
COVID, it just happened to be great timing. And so they took advantage of that, which I would too. I mean, if you're a business, why
Right.
not? But
Right.
after COVID settled in and people can go back to have more variety, and it's cheaper. I mean, this bike,
Right.
they're
True.
trying to get 1,200 to $2,000 for this thing, and you can get a membership, gym membership, and have everything you need for $30 or whatever. There's just
Right.
this doesn't make sense to me, and so.
Agree. Agree. Well, why don't we talk about what does work is strength training, right?
Right. Yeah. So, this is my opinion, but it's also based on science and some studies that are out there. And I've been training for, over 40 years, and, Vince saw all this too, doing strength training and then, doing bodybuilding to shape the body the right way naturally. And that's what Vince wanted to do, is really the best way to go for longevity, because it's a mild form of stress. You're activating muscle tissue. You're keeping your hormones active. I mean, I could go on, so we can talk about that too.
Well, a lot of people watch the show, and when you say Vince, you're meaning Vince Garanda, and really the founder of
Yeah,
NSP and
yeah.
so many different workout programs and nutrition plans. Uh, it's kind of crazy
Mhm.
how many that he did create. So, um,
Well,
yeah, yeah. So, Armin, let's get into some of the benefits of strength training. What do you think?
a lot of our audience is gonna already feel comfortable with this, but I just think it's good to kind of repeat this kind of thing so they can, reach out and maybe suggest it to other people, because I just think it's one of the most important things you can do for longevity. So, the reason it's beneficial because it's going to help maintain muscle tissue. That's really important to help your metabolism keep firing on all cylinders. And
Mm-hmm.
Vince knew that too. And there is no better way to keep your hormone levels more stable all year long than doing resistance training. At least it's like 3 to 5 days a week. It depends on your goals and stuff, but when you do the resistance training, your hormones have to be involved to help do the repair process, to rebuild cells, and because you're breaking down muscle. So this form of stress, and again, we're going to talk about how much you need to do, but this light form of stress is a form of hormesis, which basically means what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, is really good for the body. It makes it work at a higher level, and it makes the cells and all the regenerative processes work at a higher level. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a ton of benefits on that. And so then on top of that, it's great for bone density. If you don't exercise and get the calcium going to the bones and doing things you need to be doing to keep your strength up, then you're going to be more subjective to breaking a bone when if you fall or you run into something or have an automobile accident, or because a lot of people that do strength training, they'll get a bruise or they'll get a that kind of thing, but they're not typically going to break a bone. So it's just
Right.
much better to keep your bone density up, especially with osteopenia that goes on with the females, and also does happen to males too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't think of a better way to reduce stress than hit some resistance training. If you're having a bad day, I found it to be exceptional to clear my head and get back into the swing of things.
Right,
So
right.
that's one thing. And then at the end of the day, it's going to help with your body fat levels because you're burning the glucose off, and when you're getting your insulin down, you're going to be burning body fat. You need fat to rebuild cells, so it helps keep that process going. And on top of that, it's going to help prevent insulin resistance, especially if you're eating right. So you do need to eat right to make all this work, but doing the resistance training helps make things work that much better. And then I think people really seem to appreciate a good muscular looking physique and a tight body because it's really not the norm. The norm is super
Yeah,
soft and flabby, and again, this shaming thing is not about the shaming thing. It's about what people aspire to. And then if you want to aspire to live longer and to look better, that's what we're talking about. We're not looking to shame anybody, but the reason a lot of these people are in the situation they're in is because they don't do resistance training. They're not eating right. They're not getting enough sleep, and they're drinking too much. I mean, it's a big combination of lifestyle factors. And so I'm just trying to suggest, hey, there's a better way to go if you're not aware. So, I mean, I
you're
can go
absolutely
on.
right. Yeah.
I can go on this, but I think people get the idea. But let me just say one more thing. More importantly, it can really add years to your life if you care. Some people, they don't want to smoke and drink and do whatever. They don't really think about the future. But for the people out there that are thinking about the future, then you should really understand how beneficial this really is, and that's my point.
Hmm. Well, Armin, I think the adversity of it is if you watch a lot of TV, uh,
Yeah, there you go.
advertisements, TV shows, movies all show these lavish lifestyles, eating and
Mhm.
drinking, partying to all hours of the night, and everything's just wonderful. And do you notice how everybody who's doing that has like this amazing physique and looks well in clothes? I mean, you can't live that lifestyle for a long
Nah,
time and
no,
look that good. So
no.
you know, it's really uh, unfortunate with the marketing and advertising in the world of what is shown to us, and
Yeah.
it's a little scary that way. So anyway, all right,
Well,
so
I
let's get
mean,
back to
well, just on
yeah,
that
go
note,
ahead.
Frank, I mean, if our human species doesn't start making some changes, we're going to become extinct with the way we're going. This stuff is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
People need
yeah,
to wake up and be their own advocate and take charge on quality health, and not look what it's doing to healthcare. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Anyways,
yeah.
so just to kind of get back on track, but that's what people need to think about. Do you want to just go down the same path everyone else is doing and be sick for long periods of time and then finally pass away? If you want, you can. That's obviously a good, that's the
Right.
track everybody's looking at. So if you want to do something more innovative, more robust, then that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely, because you want to be able to stay active. Active,
Yeah.
where you can walk and go places and do things. Active is important to me. So, that's what I think of. I don't really think of, I guess, the longevity part. Yeah, it does cross my mind, but I just want to be able to go do things, right? And be able
Yeah.
to walk and go and do things. So I
Yeah.
think that's important. All right.
Yeah.
So
Good mobility. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get back to strength training. How much time, and we're doing this as a refresher, as you said, but how
Right.
much time per week should someone commit, Armin, to strength training?
So, that's one of those things that really is going to depend on their personal goals and what their schedule is and things like that. But as a good framework from my point of view and what I've done with my clients is if you can do something 4 to 5 days a week. I mean, it can be less. Okay. It can be 3 to 5 for
Okay.
45 minutes per session. And it can be less on that too. But I found that this is a real ideal routine. Uh, it so there's some flexibility is what I'm saying. But if you can do
Hmm.
that and set a standard, so maybe you start with 3 days a week and then get it in your schedule and then see if you can squeeze another day in a week, and because it's just going to help you. So that's the starting point there. Um, you just want to keep it simple and sustainable.
Hmm. Well, do you think it makes a difference how people split up their routines, Armin?
Well, it's like this, everything you do, I don't care if it's incorrect, either running outside, running a circle, lifting the
Right,
weights
right.
incorrectly, you're going to get some kind of result. That's just
Yeah.
how the body's got to adapt to the unusual stress that you're putting it through. But it's
Hmm.
going to adapt pretty quickly. And so then after a certain point, it's not going to work anymore. So, for a simplistic way of looking at it, people can do a full body workout and, get some results, but over time, and from my personal experience of doing all that, they're going to have some challenges. So I
And
just
so
want
why do
to,
you say that?
so I've done full body workouts. And so based on my experience, I just found that, whatever exercise I start with gets the most, you're freshest. Okay. So you can
Hmm.
use more weight, you can get more done with that first exercise. And so you got to figure out how you're going to balance everything. So that's one problem. So whatever you start with gets the most stimulation. And then whatever you finish with at the end of the workout, because your glucose levels are dropped, your strength levels dropped, you know, you're not going to have the same strength curve. And so those muscles aren't going to get the same intensity, the same um, level of muscle breakdown that you get what you start with. And
Hmm.
so I just find that over time causes people to end up training longer or to add in more exercises to try to you know get that help balance the physique out or do the exercises in a way to get the results. So you can
Hmm.
obviously you can change the rotation of how you do the exercises, but that starts getting complex too versus just splitting it out. So I just think that when you start doing these full body workouts, I just see most people end up they're in the gym an hour and a half, and again, you're only going to be good really for the first 30 to 40 minutes. I mean, if you're working hard, that's
Hmm.
it. So you need to be really, really, really knowledgeable about what exercise you're going to do because we're talking about balancing out the physique, not just doing your favorite exercises, which unfortunately some people that's what they do, but that's what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the majority of the people I see in the gym, they go to the bench press, they do their curls, they use the leg press, and they're out the door, right? I mean, that's just
Yeah.
really,
Well,
the
that
normal.
or they're just doing foundation exercises like deadlifts, squats, and presses. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
and you can do that too, but just understand that that doesn't really. I mean, it's better than nothing, as they say. But if you want to develop a nice looking physique, it's not going to happen with that. I can guarantee you that. But some people think that they do look good with basically doing that. That's
Hmm.
rare. That's like somebody that just naturally, as a mesomorph that does anything and they put on muscle, then that would be an exception. But I haven't seen anybody that just focuses on deadlifts, presses, and squats and has a stellar physique, or even a nice chiseled physique, or even a lot of good quality muscle tone for that point. So
Hmm.
that's me. So
Well, we see in sports and business, I've heard the saying preparation is the key. And if
oh
you're
yeah.
not prepared, if you don't have a plan, you're more likely to fail than succeed. And, we've been talking about that kind of stuff, but going back to what we were talking with, you got me thinking, we've done a lot of shows, talked about a lot of different things, but you really believe and you like to split up muscle groups, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been training for so long that I need to keep it interesting, and that's one of the easiest things you can do to also kind of experiment. Now, I do think that if you train upper body one day, which I think that Vince Garand agreed on this too, upper body one day, lower body the next day, that can also work well for the average person. So you're really focused on the upper body muscles one day, and obviously, if you do that for 45 minutes, you can hit a lot of different angles on the muscles, and you can rotate that a little easier. And the same thing for legs, so the lower body. So I would say that if you're somebody that just wants to not worry about having an overdeveloped physique, but just wants to maintain quality muscle, that's a great way to go. But you
Hmm.
still need to do the resistance training part of it, and that's the whole point. So, but if you want to have a balanced physique, because I've done this a lot of different ways, then
Hmm.
you need to make sure that you're focusing on your weaker body parts to bring those up to par with the ones that you really enjoy working that are stronger.
Hmm.
Unless you just don't care about how you look, and some people are like that. I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to put this kind of work in, I want to get some of the benefits of it. And that's some of the benefits. You look better, and when you look better, you feel better, your confidence is better. So that's where I'm coming from on it. I mean, as you get more developed, in a nutshell, you're going to have to adjust for recovery because you're starting to use heavier weights, and you're going to be breaking down a lot more muscle when you're doing these different strategies at higher intensity. And so when you're doing that, you're going to have to work on that recovery part. So that's the other key point that I like on splitting up muscle groups, just to allow for better recovery. And that's something you
Mm-hmm.
have to gauge, on your own. But we have technology now, like an Oura ring or Whoop wristwatch and things like that, that can help you to track how your recovery is. So, and these things are getting better. Then, if your recovery is good, you can do more because you still have to eat right. You got to get some sleep, etc.
Interesting. A lot of good stuff. And gosh, we even did a show on the Aura Ring as well, talking
Yeah,
about that specifically. Yeah.
yeah.
You know, Arman, since you mentioned longevity, how many years do you think that doing intensity training or, actual weight training can add years to a person's life? I mean, what do you think? 5, 10, 20? I mean, a lot of people are going to think that, if I'm going to train with weights, how much really will it impact me?
Well, that's a good question, and it's always going to be a little subjective. But what some of the studies are saying, and whether they're accurate or not, is
Mm-hmm.
uh, it can add about 17 to 20% onto your lifespan. So that's nothing to sneeze at. So if you look at the average man, typically lives to 80 years old. Okay, that's from a life insurance table, mortality table. But if you do 20% of that, that can add 16 more years
Mm-hmm.
potentially, if it's at 20% as a higher mark. So you could live to be 96 just by doing these things. And the thing is uh, what's really important here is the quality of life as you're going through
Right.
the aging process. Because let's face it, if your sex drive is dropping and you don't have a lot of desire, that really affects you mentally, especially a guy. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure it does with females, but what if you had great sex drive into your 80s, your 90s, and whatever? Uh, that's a vitality marker. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind, and that's a good goal to have. It's like, okay, I'm aging, I'm mobile, I got good strength, my bones are good, I got good sex drive. That's how you've been doing things for years. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we want to kind of hit on here is if you want to have good longevity, then you need to keep the strong muscles and joints so you've got that mobility factor to make the most out of it, especially if you're wealthy. I mean, if you're
Mm-hmm.
wealthy, what good's it going to do to have all this money in the bank and you can't get around, or
Right.
you're incapacitated to you can't leave the house because of certain medical conditions, heart disease or whatever. Because if you do too much, you could jeopardize yourself. I mean, that's what we're talking about here is trying to eliminate. And so again, when you slow down aging, which this helps to do, you slow down disease. So if you slow down disease, well, look at that. I mean, look at all the bonuses that you can do, or that you can have anyways, by slowing down disease just by being healthy, doing most, weight training, eating right,
Mm-hmm.
getting sleep. So, it's and at the end of the day, weight training is the only way to help prevent sarcopenia from setting in. That's the biggest thing.
I know we've talked about sarcopenia in the past. Maybe we should explain what that is again. What do you think?
Yeah, and this is going to be a more common concept that people are going to get introduced to because I mean it's a reality. So all sarcopenia means is muscle wasting. And so this is what happens as we age. So as you're getting older, time goes by, your hormones are secreted by soft tissue glands, so your hormone levels are going to decline. So you want to supplement those, keep the hormone levels up, but you're still going to lose muscle tissue. And that's really the big problem it's a small amount, which is great per year. But if you can prevent muscle tissue or have a lot of muscle tissue that you've built on your body, then that can give you longevity just from that perspective. Because as you lose this muscle tissue, what happens is 70% of your metabolism needs protein. That's where it goes. So if you don't get enough protein, you don't maintain enough muscle tissue, the the organs are going to start eating up this muscle tissue by breaking down muscle, converting it to glucose, so it has energy to feed the organs. And people don't understand these concepts. So this is why I want to kind of bring it up. If you can have a lot of more muscle tissue and you slow that down, then that's not going to happen. So, but if you don't do it, then every year you're going to keep losing more and more muscle. And then as you watch people as they get frail, the body keeps eating up the muscle tissue because they're not getting enough food for different reasons. They're not getting enough protein. So as the muscle tissue continues to go, then the organs end up not having enough. They can't break down enough muscle over time. So the organs start to shut down. Then you go to kidney failure. Then you go to other medical conditions, or you'll have heart issues. So that's what we're talking about. Sarcopenia does that. It slowly takes you down. Because when you don't have the muscle and the organs can't get what they need from the diet or from breaking down muscle, then that's when it gets ugly.
All right. Okay. Well, Arman, we're getting a little short on time. What do you have to wrap up the segment?
So again, my whole point here is that we should recommend to other people, which I do, is suggest that they do some form of resistance training and to help them with their longevity. And they're going to have a more productive life if they can incorporate it. The key is finding the right combination that they feel good about, that they can feel successful and see some success, which success keeps you motivated. It's like brush your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth, look how fast things go downhill. So you gotta do some reps, so to speak, to keep things where you would like to keep them. And so it's definitely worth the effort to work on it. So this is where you do, if you get a good coach, can help you with the strength training, the nutrition, and optimize your hormones. And these things all help to add up for a better quality of life longer. So that's the whole point. It's not one thing's going to solve your problem. Doing Peloton is not going to solve your longevity problem. It's just not. You got to do resistance training, you got to do nutrition, and then you got to understand how your hormones are working, and then you got to understand recovery. And then integrate that into a lifestyle that you can sustain long term. And then it's a win-win totally.
Well, a lot of great information as always, Arman. I'm sure the audience appreciates everything today. It's a good refresher, so thank you for all that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Stand by for a quick word from NSP Nutrition, and Arman and I will be right back.
Hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, Arman, end of summer sale on NSP Nutrition. This is probably the last week. We're getting close to going into fall. So check out NSP Nutrition's end of summer sale. You buy two, you get one free. So check that out. It's on their top 10 best-selling supplements. And I don't know if you could really kind of find a better deal right now. So check it out.
Good time to stock up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Arman, fan question time here at the NSP Nutrition Show. And we were talking about, I think we got a fan question a couple of weeks ago on footwear. And we got a question from Jay in Oahu, Hawaii. Okay. And Jay says, I live in a tropical climate and I do wear athletic footwear from time to time, but, it's a little difficult because it's hot. And he said, I wear like sandals or flip-flops a lot, and I like to wear them. I go hiking, I do a lot of things. And he said that the brand of shoe that he wears is a brand called Olakai. And what's funny is I own a pair of their flip-flops, their sandals. And
so do I. I own two different kinds of Olakai.
Okay. So, I've got the leather, like kind of a little maybe dressier sandal. And then I've got like, with the rubber sole, with the fabric straps. And they're very comfortable, but they were made for hiking, and doing things like that in a tropical climate. That's, I guess, how they were created from what I read.
Yeah.
But Jay was wondering, like, is that okay to wear when you're working out? Olakai's starting to make shoes now as well, even athletic shoes. And he said, I really don't like wearing athletic shoes. And if I'm going to work out, can I wear like my Olakai sandals? And I'm like, wow, that's a good question, Arman. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we live in Florida, so we're in the same tropical
Right,
conditions.
right.
So I understand what he's saying. I mean, I wear the flip flop Olokai all day long, and then I have the I guess canvas or soft leather shoe for just as a slip on, because
Uh-huh.
they're really comfortable. They're well made shoes. I'm really impressed with them. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't wear them for training because you need to keep your foot solid in the shoe. Because and it depends on what you're doing. I mean, if you're just doing all upper body, then probably not as big a deal. But for me, I've done it both ways. I've done it with crappy shoes and shoes that my feet can slide around
Right,
in,
right.
and because
Yeah.
sometimes that's what you only have. That's all you have to work with. If you're on a trip or something and you decide you want to go work out, and you got your shoes don't fit real well. And every time I do that, it doesn't become a good experience because it starts to affect your knees depending on how heavy you're going, and you can get blisters from too much activity. So I just prefer to use a solid shoe for my training. That way, when I'm doing something, I don't have to worry about extra stress on the knee joint because my feet are sliding around the shoe. The biggest problem is your foot moving around in the shoe. And so you need to make sure your foot's nice and tight in the shoe so you get great stability. So if you move side to side, the shoe's going to hold you where you need to be and not slide. Your foot's not going to slide in the shoe. And that's the
Hmm.
problem is with footwear is, you need to change it out if your feet start sliding the shoe because that just means that you've worn the shoe out and it stretches could they stretch out.
Hmm.
So no, I don't
Hmm.
recommend that for resistance training. I mean, you can go hiking in them, but and I wouldn't use them for hiking because they're a nice shoe. I wouldn't want to ruin them. So that's one thing
Right.
for me. But I mean, you can use them for hiking, but hiking's different than using resistance training where you need stability for your specific movements, in my opinion. So
Hmm.
I would, I would just definitely use quality footwear no matter what you're doing in the gym from that standpoint. And plus, if you drop a plate, sometimes it can protect your feet
Right.
versus other things, like even if you drop a 5 pounder and hit your toe, you have good footwear, it more likely is going to bounce off versus, a thinner piece of footwear or flip
Or
flop for that
nothing.
matter.
Yeah.
You're gonna break a bone.
Yeah.
That's just how
Yeah.
it is. So anyway, so hopefully that helps.
Well, I think where he was coming from was the support because the sole of the Olakai is so good. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it's
I,
got
I
good, it's got
agree
good
with you.
support.
Yeah. So, Jay, if you're going to work out, put on your athletic shoes, and then when you're done,
It's
take
only
them
for
off and go
45.
back. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I put mine on. I don't wear them. I don't wear them all throughout the day. I just put my athletic shoes on for the training. Then I take
Right.
them off. That makes them last longer too.
That's
So
right. That's right.
that's my approach.
That's right. Okay. The next one isn't really a question, it's just some feedback. It's
Oh, okay.
from Mark, and Mark's in Nashville, Tennessee. Mark says, "Hey, I got some of the NSP milk and egg protein,
Mhm.
and I was trying to get creative because, like, I have these cravings where, as we all do, we want like a bowl of ice cream or we want something like,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah.
His wife came up with this little kind of treat. She put the actual milk and egg protein in the blender with crushed ice, got it
Mhm.
like almost like a ice cream texture,
Thick. Yeah.
and sprinkled crushed walnut pieces in it
Yeah.
and little slivers of dark chocolate.
Yeah. That
Uh,
sounds really good, actually.
and I'm like, oh, look at
Nice.
Mark. Good
Nice
job.
job. Oh
Mark's
yeah.
wife. Hey, Mark's wife.
Yeah.
Congratulations. So if you guys are looking for a treat, that sounds pretty good to me, Armin.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Yeah. So
that's
anyway,
rock solid.
All right. Well, look, Arman, thanks again for all of the input and advice today. I'm sure everyone appreciates what you offer in the show, as I do. And, if you like what you're hearing and seeing, share it with your friends and family. You can do that by scanning the QR codes and getting the information out. You can email NSP Nutrition directly, so we'll get the information. That's support at NSP Nutrition, or you can comment right on the YouTube episode of your choice, and we'll get that information as well. But thanks for joining us today. And Arman and I will be back next week for a brand new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP Show. Go to nspnutrition.com where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget, you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP Show at the checkout. Catch you next time.